Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis. I'm here with Kaitlin Wierzbach and Kate Behr, both consultants from here at Core. Glad you all could join us again.
Happy to be here again.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be doing part 2 of our series on quality culture, this week being employee satisfaction. But before we do that, we already talked to Kate and Kaitlin and got a little bit about their journey. So today is going to be a question. One of the most important questions one could have. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oof, that's a tough one. But I think I'm going to have to go with specifically Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream.
Okay, Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream.
Has to be Haagen-Dazs.
How about you, Kaitlin?
Definitely not that. I don't like coffee anything. It's a spread. No, I like the OG, the Green Oasis, the mint chocolate chip.
There you go.
But it can't be specific. It cannot be the big chunks. If it's the big chunks of chocolate chips, get out of here. No, it needs to be like the shavings where it's uniform throughout the whole thing. I don't like the big chunks.
Absolutely agree.
Yes, I agree. That I have 2 favorites. That's one of them. And luckily it was because my wife came up when we met and I was working at this little dinky place. And she said, "Oh, you guys have ice cream here now?" I said, "Yeah, you should try the mint chocolate chip."
Oh.
And she's like, "Ooh." And I was like, I asked her out for coffee.
Yeah.
3 months later, we were married, and it's almost 30 years. So
there you go.
Ice cream saved my life. It is. It's the OG.
It is. So good.
Yep. Well, whatever you like, enjoy it. And now that we're all hungry for ice cream and maybe coffee or mint chocolate chip, let's start with our actual podcast questions. So, Kate, how does cultivating a quality-focused culture through ISO 9001 directly improve employee satisfaction?
Well, it has a lot to do with ice cream. Just kidding.
Ice cream parties.
Ice cream parties is actually written out in the standard.
Ice cream parties, exactly.
But no, ISO 9001 isn't just about compliance. It directly impacts employee satisfaction by creating a structured, supportive, and engaging work environment.
Okay.
First, it provides clear expectations and well-defined processes, which reduces confusion and stress.
Mm-hmm.
Employees know what's expected and have things like quality objectives to measure the outputs of their efforts against. It also cuts down on workplace chaos. When processes are standardized, there's less crisis management and firefighting.
I can see that.
Another big factor is employee involvement. ISO 9001 encourages workers to contribute to process improvements, giving them a voice and making them feel valued. When leaders actively support the quality initiatives, employees feel they have the resources and the backing that they need to succeed.
Absolutely.
Recognition and growth also improve in a quality-driven culture. When employees help refine processes or boost customer satisfaction, their contributions get noticed, or they should get noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And better communication and collaboration means fewer misunderstandings and a more connected workforce.
Absolutely.
A company that embraces ISO 9001 isn't just improving quality for customers, it's building a workplace where employees feel empowered, engaged, and valued. And when that happens, satisfaction and retention typically naturally improves.
That's awesome. That's so true. It's definitely something where you're putting things in place so people know what their job is. You're communicating with them, and that's going to make them feel like, hey, I'm valued and I know what I'm supposed to do here.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing things the way that they are defined, you can be pretty confident that you're doing a good job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Kaitlin, what role do you see that employees play in the ISO 9001 process, and how does their involvement contribute to a sense of satisfaction and ownership? We touched on it a little bit already today and a little bit last week, but could you elaborate a little more?
Yeah, they definitely, all employees play a huge role in the process. It's not something that can succeed with just leadership or management driving it. Leadership and management can't succeed without all of their teams and their employees.
That's right.
For one, employees are the ones directly involved in the day-to-day operation. So they're the best people to identify inefficiencies in those processes, suggest improvements if there are inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
They ensure that the processes are being followed. Your upper management or quality team can write your procedures or processes, but they're the ones actually performing them day to day. So their insights are critical because they know firsthand on a daily basis what works and what doesn't.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So definitely during implementation, it's important to get employees helping document the existing processes, involve them and prepare them for the audits and share ideas for improving workflows.
Mm-hmm.
So involving the employees, definitely make sure that the system reflects reality. It doesn't reflect something that just what management or maybe somebody a little bit more removed from that process thinks is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It actually will reflect what the employees are doing. And it also makes them feel heard and valued, providing that insight into their management or leadership into what their day-to-day activities are. So when their input is acted on, say they have an idea to improve a process and that improvement is actually initiated, it reinforces the idea that they're contributing to something bigger other than just their individual every single day-to-day tasks.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely their ongoing role is just as important. The standard emphasizes continuous improvement, which you can't talk about that enough.
Nope.
So by being directly engaged, they develop a sense of ownership over their works and its impact on the organization.
Yep, that's right.
So that can be really motivating to the employees if that's what they see their, small role doing. So it transforms their role from just following instructions, looking at their responsibilities, reading procedures or processes, to actively shaping the organization's success.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of empowerment can really go a long way in building loyalty, pride, and just a stronger connection to the company in general.
Absolutely. When you have your people that are going to be doing the job on the line, talking about it, it's going to make it a lot more efficient, and it might stop bottlenecks, like we said, or even like procedural issues.
Yeah.
So, Kate, how does ISO 9001 influence training and development programs within organizations? And what effect does this have on employee growth and satisfaction?
Well, ISO 9001 does have a specific clause to 7.2, competence, that relates to training, competence, and defining what competency means within your own organization.
So it told us to pay attention to this.
It says this is very important.
That's right.
By giving it its own special clause. So that clause specifically plays a huge role in training and development by encouraging and requiring organizations to take a structured, strategic approach to employee growth. It's not just about offering training. It's about making sure employees have the right skills at the right time to succeed.
Absolutely.
So the first thing it does is it promotes competency-based training. Like I said, you have to define what competency means in your organization or in specific positions. That means that organizations identify the skills employees need so they can provide targeted, job-specific training. It also encourages ongoing development, ensuring employees stay up to date with new technologies and industry trends.
That's so important.
Plus, companies must evaluate training effectiveness, creating feedback loops that support mentorship and continuous learning.
Yep. If you're not learning, you're falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
Employees feel more confident and capable, which leading to reduced stress and better performance. Career growth opportunities expand, giving employees a clear path for advancement. And when companies invest in training, employees feel valued.
They do.
Which boosts engagement, satisfaction, and retention.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the bottom line is really that ISO 9001 ensures training isn't just a checkbox. By giving it its own clause, when employees grow, the organization thrives.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and get better at doing it, and learn new things that might apply to it.
Exactly. In my own experience, I've worked with many employees that had great potential or great interest with staying with a company, but they did not have a pathway to get there or the options, or they did not have those ideas. So that's, again, where top leadership comes in and can say, here's a path if you would like to take it, or work together to pave the path.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Because there's nothing worse just feeling like I'm stuck putting this part together.
Exactly.
Yeah. For sure.
But,
Exactly.
well, not for everybody. Some people might absolutely love that. But there might be people like, if I put one more of these things together.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be my last day. Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
yep,
So
exactly.
giving them some options to grow and succeed, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. Now, Kaitlin, how does work environment change when an organization does implement 9001? And what impacts do these changes have on employee morale?
Yeah, so it definitely has a pretty positive effect on morale if you implement 9001 correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It can really transform the work environment once everybody adjusts to those changes, once we get over that initial maybe resistance a little bit. So for starters, the workplace usually becomes a lot more organized.
Okay.
Like we've been talking about, the processes are clearly documented and everybody knows what their roles and responsibilities are. One of the gaps, which is a very simple thing that you typically wouldn't think that you see, but we see often, is some companies don't even have something as simple as job descriptions.
Wow.
What are your employees' responsibilities? They don't have that documented down. They just hire and say, here's what I want you to do. So even just
or it says task as assigned.
yeah, right. It says, some companies don't even have role like titles. They'll be like, that's just Sarah. This is what she does. So kind of, the standard will require you just to document what are their responsibilities, just so even they have something to reference back to, that I know what my role is within the company. So even with that, along with documenting, the responsibilities, your communication will get better.
Yep.
With the standard, there's a big emphasis on sharing feedback, whether that's good or bad, reporting issues, and working together collectively to improve things, not just one person thinking that it can improve, really sharing your ideas collectively to improve on your processes and efficiencies. And when people feel like their voices are heard and their ideas actually matter, they tend to feel more connected and appreciated. Along with that, another big change is the focus on continuous improvement, which ISO is all about. Like we've been talking about, employees are often encouraged to share their ideas or point out those inefficiencies. And when those suggestions lead to change, again, they get an ownership and pride in their work. And to build off of what Kate was saying, there's usually some training involved. So they can build new skills and just show that the company is investing in their growth.
Yep. It's very important.
People like working in an environment that's organized, values quality, and gives them a chance to contribute. Just may take a little bit of time to get there.
Like anything, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there when you implement something. Stick with it. Yep,
yes.
It's so important. And it really does make a difference to your business. Now, Kate, in what ways does ISO 9001 encourage recognition and rewarding employees? Now, we talked about saying, hey, great job. You're part of this. We really got this together. Yay. Let's have an ice cream party. But how does this influence their satisfaction and motivation?
Well, the standard doesn't dictate employee recognition programs, but I think anyone who's been in a leadership position understands that recognizing your employees is really, really important if you want to keep them around and keep them motivated and keep them doing a great job. But it does create a culture where recognition naturally happens, which directly impacts motivation and satisfaction.
That's a great idea.
So the name of the game, continuous improvement, encouraging employees to identify inefficiencies and suggesting solutions. Once those employees do identify some inefficiencies and suggest solutions, they can recognize and reward those contributions. Ice cream parties, public acknowledgement, incentives, career growth. And even just having a one-on-one conversation to say, hey, I really recognize the time you took to identify this and to think of some solutions, and I appreciate it. I think can really go a long way.
Yeah. Hey, here's a year membership to Haagen-Dazs Club.
Exactly.
I was going to say, something that really stood out to me about CORE was when I first got hired, a member from HR, asked privately, how do you like to be recognized? Because not everybody likes a call out in a meeting. Not everybody likes the same kind of acknowledgement. So having that communication with the employees, how do you like to be rewarded and recognized, and then being able to provide that to them individually.
It's funny you should say that, because I was thinking that exact same thing I was going to add to when Kate was finished. Some people like hey, I need the kudos. Hey, I need a job title. Hey, I want an ice cream party. Hey, I want some extra time off. Hey, extra, hey, it's all about the Benjamins. I don't care about anything else.
Right.
And add anything in between, getting to, again, know your employee and to know a way that they like to be rewarded.
Exactly.
I think in larger companies, it can be a little bit more challenging. In smaller companies, again, like Kaitlin was saying, that, asking employees, what makes you feel valued? I had a similar but different situation where our president, where Scott reached out via Teams message and just gave a shout out for a good customer review. And that really meant a lot.
Same.
But it felt great to hear it. And I didn't need a shout out in a meeting. I didn't want a shout out in a meeting, but I was happy to have that acknowledgement for something that was positive. And it's nice to know that the right people are looking at the right things, I think, which is what that often comes down to, is that someone notices.
Yeah. And I think that's the bare minimum.
Exactly.
Right.
Someone is noticing, and they don't just notice when you make a mistake or when something goes wrong. They're noticing when you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're doing it well, which is so important. There's also an emphasis on data-driven performance tracking through your quality objectives, measuring your quality improvements, and you can reward employees based on that real impact. We have numbers, we have growth that we can show. We can show some charts and some data and some tables and really see growth and see improvement in metrics. And again, of course, we talked about leadership engagement. We talked about how that applies to us here at CORE, but Supporting and reinforcing that quality-focused culture is so important. Overall, in the end, while ISO 9001 doesn't mandate rewards, it creates the conditions where recognition and motivation become part of the culture. And when employees feel valued, they're more engaged, productive, committed.
Absolutely. So, Kaitlin, what advice would you give to organizations that are looking to cultivate a culture that supports ongoing ISO 9001 compliance?
Yeah, so definitely once you implement the standard, you want to make it stick. You want to make it embedded as part of the company culture so it becomes second nature, not just something people do because they have to do it.
Right.
So there's a couple of things. The first one, obviously, being start at the top that we've been hounding in. Your leadership, they set the tone. If they're genuinely committed, employees will follow that example. So show people that implementing the standard is about improving the company, not just passing an audit.
Absolutely.
Another point is encourage open communication. You want to make sure your environment makes your employees want to actually bring up issues to whoever they need to, whether they spot an issue, have a suggestion, or just need clarification. Sometimes even your employees are afraid to ask if they're doing something correctly. You want to create an open environment so that every single employee is comfortable going to who they need to ask any questions. But it's also really important that if an employee does speak up and does bring a concern or potentially a mistake, that it's seen as an opportunity to improve, not as a reason to blame somebody. So placing the importance on continuous improvement, making sure it doesn't happen again, rather than focusing on the past and the mistake and blaming somebody for the issues.
Absolutely.
And then kind of going off of what we were just talking about and Kate was saying too, celebrate all of your wins.
Absolutely.
Did you pass an audit? Did you improve a process? Did you hit a customer satisfaction milestone? Celebrate it with whatever way the company sees fit. Recognizing those successes reinforces the value of everyone's efforts and keeps motivation strong. And similar to the last one, just build that accountability without fear. If something goes wrong, making sure that it's treated as a chance to learn and improve rather than assigning that blame. It's known, just we're humans. Employees are a lot more likely to report issues when they know they're not going to get penalized for being honest.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, 9001 works best when people see it as a framework for doing their jobs better and improving, not just as rules to follow.
Yep.
So creating a culture where quality and improvement are everybody's responsibility, leadership, and throughout, and make it rewarding, you'll set your organization up for long-term success.
That's great. Great points. All right. We did it. We built it. We have a culture of quality. It's established. Employees are so happy. How can we sustain this, Kate?
That is the hard part, right? But
Yep.
I think if you keep a couple of things in mind, keeping it up, mixing it up. You got to stay consistent, but you can't get stale. You can't get boring. You have to continue to communicate the culture in unique ways, but keep it up.
Okay.
There's some different ways to approach it, right? The standard requires that you do certain things, but it does leave a lot of room for you to make that what quality looks like for you in your own organization and make it fit.
That's why there's nothing specific. You do this way. It just says,
exactly.
You got to do something. Figure it out.
It's the double-edged sword of the standard where you have a lot of flexibility to do what you want, but sometimes it would be nice if the standard told you exactly what it wanted you to do and how to do it.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
Yes,
that's why we're here, to give you some tools for your toolkit. But you can kind of combine reinforcement and reinforcing the quality culture with employee recognition. So you can combine those things, use those tools that your employees appreciate, like Kaitlin was talking about. As far as how do people like to be recognized, those two things can go hand in hand to reinforce the culture and recognize your employees. I totally agree with Kaitlin. Celebrate all the wins, even the small ones.
Yep.
I don't think any win is too small to understand, recognize in some type of way. And giving your employees the opportunity to take on new responsibilities, tasks, and initiatives if they're interested and their bandwidth allows for it. Kind of fun things like doing a quality podcast. Doing things like that can show that you not only trust your employees to tackle something new, but you have the confidence in them that they will be successful in it, which really enforces the idea as well that the QMS belongs to everyone and everyone's contribution to it is important.
That's right. Kaitlin, do you have any take?
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually one thing I think Kate and I both started off as auditors here at Core 2 and then, moved to that consulting role. So even just a small shift can really show that you trust your employees, like Kate was saying.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've built that culture of quality and your employees are happy, the goal is to keep that momentum going. I've seen, unfortunately, in the past where you get certified, it's implemented, and then they wipe their hands of it. They're like, okay, we did it. Now we don't need to do anything else. But it's all about consistency and continually showing that quality and employee satisfaction aren't just one-time goals. It's not just we hit it, we're done. They're a part of how the organization works every single day. So
absolutely,
don't let things get stagnant. Even if they're running smoothly, you can always look for even little things to tweak and improve. Just making small little tweaks here and there that can help quality keep everybody engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, keep the employees involved in that. Make sure they're a part of the decision making and problem solving. When they know that their opinions matter, they're a lot more engaged and they really help shaping the future of the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then it's important that, like we were saying, don't assume that things will stay great forever. So keep monitoring your employee satisfaction. I know internally we have an employee satisfaction survey, so it's never a bad idea to get feedback from your employees. How well are things going? Is there anything that we can improve on? Being able to listen and being open to that feedback and adjust as needed. So don't just take the feedback and leave it. If there's some room for improvement, actually implementing that will keep your employee satisfaction. So yeah, maintaining your open communication, sharing updates, celebrate your wins. The bottom line is just keeping a culture of quality alive isn't about big flashy moves besides your first year getting certified, obviously, because that's kind of a big flashy move.
That is. And it costs a lot of money.
Yes, exactly. But once you're implemented, it's all about being consistent. Show your employees that they're valued and stay committed to improvement. We're not just going to implement and then forget about it. So if you do that, your quality and your employee satisfaction will thrive over the long haul.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, this has been an awesome conversation both weeks. I really appreciate you both being here, giving us some incredible information. I think this has been great. I'm going to reward us. I think you all should have some ice cream too.
I got some in the freezer.
Thank you. I'll take you up on that suggestion.
All right.
That's perfect recognition. That's how I like to be recognized.
Awesome. And we want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. Now, if you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions and how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, customized training, maybe helping you get better employee satisfaction, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's dropped next week. Have a great day, everyone.